Hello, happy Monday, everybody. We are in the famed landmark in Grayton Beach, the Red Bar, and we are so excited to be here. It might be my favorite set of the varied sets that we've held podcast over the years. And I thank my first guest, or one of my guests, Oliver Petit, who is the owner of the Red Bar in 30 years, celebrating 30 years today. And our guest, Kevin Boehm, the legendary Kevin Boehm, who owns 47 restaurants, or has owned 47 restaurants, runs and co-owns the Boca Restaurant Group in Chicago. And these lovely gentlemen are friends for the last 33 years.
I've eaten a lot of pan-age chicken in this place.
A very good dish.
And a lot of crab cakes.
Right.
Yeah, we've been friends we met in 1993.
Yep.
Okay, so in 1993, Ollie, you were working at Josephine's.
I was.
And that was a beautiful restaurant, lovely, the days back in the Seaside days back then were so special, and it's not exactly the same right now, but I know it's still great for a lot of people, but they were magical times. And then, Kevin, you rolled into town.
I did roll into town. I literally rolled
You literally rolled in.
Yeah,
and you both met shortly thereafter, right?
I went to Josephine's on a date, and I was a little over my skis. She was older than I was. I was trying to be impressive. And I went to Josephine's, and Bruce Albert, the great Bruce.
A great guy. Mm-hmm.
He sat me. There was a guy sitting at the table who was hammered and thought his jokes were way too funny. And I was so upset because this table was right next to this guy. Bruce sat me and handed me the menu and winked at me. When I opened up the menu, there was a Post-it note inside, and it said, "Dear Mr. Boehm, the guy on your left is an asshole. He will be gone soon. Until then, bear with us, love, Bruce."
Yeah.
And my brain exploded because I was like, I couldn't believe you could do that in fine dining.
Yeah.
And so that moments before I met him for the first time, was a big moment in my life, because up until that point, I didn't understand that hospitality and service were two different things. And I've heard it been said before that service is black and white and hospitality is color. Bruce Albert was color.
Yeah, great guy. Is he still around?
Yes.
He is. Where's
Bruce lives in the town of Bruce.
And is he still in the restaurant business?
He's not. No, he grows flowers and vegetables.
Love it.
Yeah, and he goes to the different markets, Seaside Market, Rosemary, and
I liked him a lot. Really nice guy.
wonderful man. Indeed, yes, a real professional.
And did you meet Ollie that night when he was cooking?
I don't know if we met that night, but what it led to was them having their holiday party at my first little restaurant. And that's where we really talked.
Exactly. We didn't meet that night. I wasn't allowed out of the kitchen in those days. I was still cooking, and Bruce was the maitre d'.
Cutting your teeth.
We each
rough around the edges.
I wasn't presentable.
Ollie was never rough around the edges. I'm sorry.
He was always the smoothest.
No, smooth operator, and the handsome Belgium. Yeah.
He was once coined by the Nashville Scene magazine as the Belgian Elvis.
Well,
Not too far from the truth, man.
I don't think that's a good enough title, actually.
Except he was the Elvis that was sitting on the toilet in 1977. Come on.
Oh my God.
I think you were like comeback Elvis in a leather.
Okay, so for restaurant greats sitting together here, you've been friends for a really long time. And one of the reasons that we're having this podcast, everybody, is Kevin has written a book, his autobiography, called The Bottomless Cup. And I just finished it last night at 9:30, and it's amazing, absolutely amazing. So I got a big refresher on days gone by, and then you're in the book a lot, Ollie, so complimentary, of course, and such good friends. And then, Kevin, you've kept a lot of friends over the years. So I'm impressed by so many things that are in the book. It's wild. Your life is a wild ride in all the best ways. But I'm most impressed, weirdly, that you've kept friendships for such a long time. And your friendship is one of those that is really real. And in a world, to me, that seems more unreal as each year goes by, I find that a treasure that you can't buy that. So how does that happen? And a lot of handshake deals you made, I go, I haven't made that many handshake deals. You don't do a lot of contracts at the beginning of your your gigs too, which I also found like very like cowboy, very good. What way to do business?
I find that, a lot of times your patterns in life are 90% because you're either trying to emulate or rebel against what you grew up in. My family was not very social. I did not have a happy childhood. And one of the things that came out of that was I wanted to curate a family of my own. And I was like, that's fine. I'm going to build a chosen family. And, he's become, I would say I have like 6 brothers.
Right.
He's one of them.
Yes.
And Scott Alderson, who I met in the Panhandle at that time, is also one of those brothers. And so I was, there were a lot of things that I wasn't good at early on, but I was good at loyalty and friendship. And so I started to build this little family, and it started here.
Wow.
This feels as much like my hometown as Springfield, where I grew up, does.
Right.
Just because of the formation of who I really was as a human happened here.
So to give some context to everybody, back then when we're setting the stage for how this all sort of came together, Ollie, you hadn't opened the Red Bar yet. Had you opened your first Lazy Days Cafe?
I'd already opened, at what point?
Well, like how long after you two met?
Oh, we really met and talked when he walked into Lazy Days.
Oh, okay. So
I went to Josephine's, but then we met at Lazy Days.
Okay.
And for me, it was a turning point in my life in a sense that I had a head chefing job at Josephine's and thought I was well on my way in my trajectory. And when I met Kevin, who was in the back of this building, literally on a porch with a plastic covered wall because it was wintertime, an electrical heater, plastic chairs and tables, and the most exquisite Miles Davis on the radio, a wonderful little menu, him running around. And I thought to myself then, I'm actually behind schedule here. I need to have my own thing, and it can be done with plastic chairs and a porch. And that was a turning point in my life to realize that aspirations of fine dining or grander restaurant, it needs to be financed. It needs to be something that's well thought of. Then a porch with plastic covering can be done by anyone.
It can be done well, and it can be charming.
If you have the proper person behind it, which in that case was Kevin, it was so charming and so exciting, and his food was delicious, the music was good, and you forgot that you were sitting on a porch.
Right,
so
right.
in life, sometimes there's a little thinking.
So
Perspective.
Right before we went live, you and I were talking, Ollie, and you said like you were thinking about opening a restaurant or hoping, but it was like years down the road. And then when you met Kevin, like he sparked something in you to go, wait a minute, like I can make this sooner than later, right?
You bet, absolutely. Made me feel that perhaps that time frame that I had needed to be rushed,
Right.
And of course, finding a spot also helped. A location will help you make a decision. That was the serendipitous moment to run into this location.
Maya Angelou has a great quote, which says, years after you've met somebody for the first time, you won't remember what the exact dialogue was, but you remember how they made you feel. I remember a little bit of both. I remember how charming he was and how great he made me feel. But I also remember him coming up to me, he goes, may I ask how old you are? That was the first question that he asked me, so that's what was going on in his mind.
And for the record, he's a year younger than I am.
Right.
So
you're like,
thinking,
damn it.
I was inspired.
That girlfriend.
It inspired me.
Yeah.
It
That
inspired.
girlfriend that I took to Josephine's, which is Teresa, who was older than me, was my partner, and she was the chef.
Right.
She was a great cook, and so,
And the best looking girl in town didn't hurt either. The best looking girl in town was the chef, and you had him.
she was
That look.
beautiful.
He was just a perfect package.
Definitely.
You probably could have been in New York or LA in a grandiose setting. I would have taken over too. It didn't matter the setting. It was the content that was beautiful.
So before then, you opened the Red Bar a year later. Let's just take everybody back to like people that we all met back then in the day in the music scene and how that all came together. And I'll let you all tell your story about that night. And then Ollie, you can say that you got in a little bit of trouble after it, but it's all good.
Clearly, we're both music fans, music lover.
Yeah.
See, I'm a closet drummer. He's a closet singer. We love the music. We're super fans. We study the back of the albums. We know the producers and the bass players. And through these ventures, we've been able to vicariously live through them by booking them and having them come into our places and then sharing their stories and even sometimes feeling like we're part of the band in a way, especially as they become repeat guys. And that part right there, for me, at least, this place called the Red Bar. This was a bar with live music, and if you remember, pool tables were in this side of the restaurant, and then the food was a bit of an afterthought. If you had a bit of a hunger, well, I'll go back there.
Somebody hit somebody with a pool stick one night, and the pool tables were open.
This is clear. When the town was seeing red, as you mentioned earlier, that's what that was. You give a drunk man a pool stick or a stick, it's just not a good combination. And pretty soon I found myself, to my surprise, that people would behave like animals. Yeah. And I did not like that aspect of it, and sort of reinvented myself as more of a restaurateur, which I was all along.
Right.
And I realized that life seemed a little bit more conducive for longevity than being there till 4 a.m. and watching people partying. You know?
I feel like the Red Bar became kind of legendary very quickly, and part of that was Greg Barnhill, who was this big songwriter from Nashville, Grammy-nominated songwriter who came down here and did a CD release party, and then Kim Carnes is singing here, who I had just met through Greg. It was kind of wild because it was like, this is like in 95. I had just bought the 45 at Betty Davis size like 14 years before that. Yeah. You know, or the We Are the World single 10 years.
Keep in mind that Greg Barnhill has just written the number one on the Billboard song "Walk Away Joe" from Trisha was singing that.
Yeah.
That was at the
it was a big. It was
House
big.
of Love by Amy Grant.
House of Love. I mean, these were Grammy-nominated artists, Billboard #1 Billboard song, million unit seller. And Greg's just as nice of a guy as you know.
Oh yeah, it was so fun, and it was so like we were living like our best lives and here on the beach. You know, they were very, very fun.
We used to get the Summer of Love. A lot of people call it that. The summer of '95.
Yeah.
Red Bar opened, and a few months later, the Wine Bar opened, which I opened up in Blue Mountain Beach.
Right.
Indigo. And that was a wild summer. And him and I really bonded over it. And I would come down here afterwards or vice versa, and we had a blast.
You would support one another.
Yeah, we were the scene, really. The only late night scene at the time was the Red Bar and the Indigo, so people would come in here for a little bit more of a disco pool table vibe, and then you go to Kevin for wine by the glass and perhaps a roll of sushi. I mean, this man introduced sushi to 30A. Wine by the glass was something that you got in New York. The little flights, you'd have this little wood thing with five different glasses. I mean, all these concepts were so ahead of their time.
I was a silly little kid. I was a silly kid. I was like, what are my three favorite things? Wine, sushi, and rock and roll.
But you had this,
put them all together.
You had this observational skill to see those trends that were going on in cities and to bring them into this smaller market, but yet a very sophisticated market here. The people absolutely bought into it. I mean, especially in Montsport with this presentation. Right. And then introducing these very sophisticated way of drinking and eating. Yes. I mean, it was a home run. Yeah. And as I said, you'd come in here, you could get a chicken pane or a cheese manicotti the size of if you had the whole thing, you probably could go in cardiac arrest, you know, and you could go to Kevin and be a lot more sophisticated, but yet both crowds seem to be at home. And
but before we go too far because I want to give you your props to your family legacy and your father, and you come from culinary royalty. And so, you know, yes, it was a bar and all that, but people loved your food then and they love your food now. So talk about like the food part for a second.
Yeah. You know, my father, as you know, is a great restaurateur, and I was raised in the restaurant business in fine dining. My father had a French-style restaurant, wore the tuxedo, and me, I watched a father that was in constant pressure with demanding chefs. He didn't cook himself. Right. Pressures from his customers when you're in that line of dining. You know, one false move could mean just an experience that's ruined for life. And I just didn't like that atmosphere. Yeah. And when it was time for me to express myself, this is what came about. Yeah. It was the other side of dining, to where it's not chef inspired, to where now you take the power away from the customer. At the time, our entrees were $8 to $12 with a live band at no cover charge. So if I asked you to put 6 people in this four-seater booth, I could allow myself to do that. You're paying $10 for the entree. Right. You're here for a show. And it really created a culture, if you will, of, you got away with a lot of things that my father would have never got away with. And he saw it and embraced it.
And he liked it
himself. He himself dropped the tuxedo. Yeah. I mean, you see him at the door right there. That's him right there with his tuxedo. Yeah. He was done with that life. And yet still bring...
Yeah. One thing you got to mention, though, is like how big of a part of the concept at the beginning was him.
Yeah.
You know, like you were larger. you already are larger than life. He's 6'8",
Right.
but he's also, his personality is like 7'6". And so when he used to be, we had a shtick. He would be at a table talking to a group of like 14 people, and I would go by and I'd be like, folks, I just got to tell you, this is a fake accent. And he would say, that's right, I'm from Alabaster, Alabama. He used to say,
Y'all, I gotta come clean. Alabaster.
Oh, my God. Crazy.
have you been to Alabaster?
I used to drive through it because if you go to Birmingham, Alabama, you're going to drive to Alabaster. And now that name always, sometimes you see it just sad. It's fun to say Alabaster. I still run there and throw it out with all these different accents. In French, it sounds pretty Alabaster.
Sounds so much, everything sounds so much better in French, by the way. So, okay, so this, I feel like we have a good setup for taking us back then.
Yes.
How long did Lazy Days Cafe live?
Lazy Days Cafe lived for about 1.5 years before somebody bought the building and bought us out.
Yes. And the person that bought the building ended up being George Chandor, who moved it then
And
to...
no, Chandor stayed
Oh,
at
right,
Zero.
he stayed there.
Actually got Bon Appetit's 10 best restaurants in small towns.
Yeah.
And then somebody bought the land, and Alice Beach ended up moving the building, and it's now George's.
George's, yeah, that is just a crazy legacy
So
of that
the
building.
sense memory that I have in that building
Yeah.
is crazy. We built part of the deck on that building when we took it over, and so lots of nostalgia.
When you walk into George's today, you are in the architectural office. And his restaurant was in the back of our building,
right.
so he
That was
shared
the
a space.
architect.
Yeah.
The front of it was
Yeah.
an architecture office.
Yeah.
And in the back was a
crazy.
you could call
So
it a kitchen.
Carrie McWhorter.
So,
Yes,
yeah.
Carrie.
So thankful to the people of Alice that saved the building and moved it. I mean, was so fortunate.
I'm a really nostalgic person too. So the ability to be able to go back and look at that and
Or have lunch or something in it that was
Lunch
like
in it.
your space.
yeah,
And us, we're like-minded in saving buildings. Look what we did with this. That was burned to the ground, and we could have rebuilt it in many different forms. And we chose to bring back what it was. It was so perfect and so historical that I think that's something a lot of people appreciate.
Well, yeah. Well, in reading Kevin's book, he's had the highest of highs and he's had his lows as well. We'll get into some of that when we talk about the book. Not all of it, because this book is so fascinating and riveting that we can't give too much away. But Oli, in your case and what your family went through, when this beautiful landmark burned to the ground in a really short period of time, the grit, the grace, the stick-to-itness that you all had to have, was there a moment when you said, I don't know, maybe we won't rebuild?
There was a moment where I was in a fetal position with my thumb in my mouth.
Oh, God.
I was trembling. And from there, you just kind of pick yourself up. And you mentioned it, the surroundings, the family, the feeling of move or die or quit, or the options were pretty grim. So having the opportunity, I think in life, that's all that humans can ask for, an opportunity. And it felt that way, the building was leveled. And at that point, you're kind of looking at it. I miss my building. It was special, but now I have an opportunity. I have this empty lot in the heart of Grayton Beach, and they are allowing us to rebuild it.
Yes.
From there on, we felt that we had it was going to be positive.
Yeah. Well, I know back then it was devastating, obviously, for your family, you and your family. It was also devastating for the community at large because it was and is such a landmark. It was leveling to me, and everybody, and so many people. So the fact, I'm just going to say, because we covered this in the magazine, Rising Phoenix from the Ashes, and with your family all out there in the back, that was still like when it was leveled. Decisions that you make in life, sometimes they can be good for you, but sometimes those decisions can be good for so many other people as well. Like, we're not just like an island, like, does this work for me? Because sometimes it works for everybody. And in your case, you rebuilding, it worked for everybody. And I'm just going to thank you on behalf of everybody. Thank you for rebuilding it.
Thank you, Lisa. And truly, we have felt it from, I'll say this, from a marketing, and we were in people's heart, and this was beloved. That has put the place on another level.
Yeah.
I've never gone to war. But it's got to be that feeling when after the fire, people would come to me with such just compassion, and they felt my pain. I wanted to compare if you went to war and came back from it and had stories to tell, it must have felt a little bit like that, because I was healthy and back in action to me while we're rebuilding. But the pain that people felt, and I just, something I'll probably never forget. I'll definitely
and
never
that's
forget.
support. That's compassion. It's support.
And it feels like I can't even tell
know.
the difference until I go to the bathroom.
Yes, that was a good. This place is really beautiful. I mean, in the day, you can really appreciate like all of the nuances and everything that you have created in here, even more than at night.
Thank you. And that
really cool.
that was probably the most daunting part, actually. When he was gone, and now you have the opportunity, you feel like everyone else that has an opportunity. But now our opportunity was to rebuild the Red Bar. And that's just when I had a lot of anxiety. Because I'm thinking, how is we supposed to rebuild something that was built in 1939, that took 25 years? You kind of, this whole thing is sort of layers and layers of decoration. And that was the daunting part, But at the end, it turned out really well. And as you see the details, my salesman told me those floors are over 100 years old. I'm like, listen, they don't look a day over 80. I'll buy that. They look, and everything that you see from the ceiling, tongue and groove, to the walls, it's vintage wood recuperated from a barn in Kentucky. And those details, I think, really helped recreate this.
It's so hard to create soul in a place.
Yeah, well, almost impossible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you both have done it like time and time again, for sure. Ollie, have you gone up to Kevin's restaurants?
I have. I haven't seen them all because he has
so many.
Yeah, but I've dined in probably half a dozen of them, and I mean it's amazing. It's a world-class operation. It feels like a privately owned restaurant. Each one none of them are alike. All of them are chef-driven, menu-driven, and yet it's a major corporation. I mean, there's 3,000 to 4,000 people at work for the company, and yet you walk into each restaurant, you feel very much like if you walked into this one, this feels like it's a family that owns it. This feels like someone that owner-operator. And that's one thing he's done so masterfully, is to be owner and operator, but grow it to a level that is staggering. It's very difficult. That's something I haven't been able to do. And I've tried and I failed actually several times trying to open other restaurants. Just didn't work for us.
Yeah.
My family and I realized that we're good at it. We're running it. We're in charge. That works for us.
Yeah. Well, everybody has a different destiny, and everyone has a different mission.
No question. And this is where Kevin is his approach is just another level of delegation and surrounding with talent, a knack for finding talent. That's bar none.
Lucky to have a really great team of people.
Well, a lot of people say that, and I say that too, and I mean it, but I don't know what it must feel like to helm 3,000 or 4,000 employees. That seems like daunting isn't a big enough word.
Sometimes it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, that is, but I don't even know, how do you do that? That is such a huge operation.
What I always say is we're, 36 restaurants right now or whatever. One restaurant, 5 restaurants, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Those are all different companies. So every time you get bigger, you have to change a little bit. You have to evolve. So I think that's the problem with a lot of companies is they keep doing the same thing. And then they back it up by saying, you know what, why we do it this way? Because we've always done it that way. And I think in this day and age, that is death. And you've seen it in your own business, the constant pivoting to who you've become and what the world has become. And so we've had to do that in every which way, including the way we work with our employees, because the people that I worked with in 1995 are not the same people that I work with in 2025. And that's not to say anybody's better or worse. They're just different. And, a lot of life is manipulating the end result that you want to achieve. And when you look at a lot of people that work for you, everybody has a different motivation. This person's doing it because they want to get smarter. This person wants to do it because they want to make money. This person wants balance in life. And so really, if you want to figure out how to run a great company, figure out who everybody is, put them in the right place, give them the right title, and motivate them in the right way.
Well, I think this is a good segue to state that you won a coveted award, one that you have been wanting to win for many years, the James Beard Restaurateur of the Year. What year was that?
The 2018.
2018. And you had wanted it for how long?
Well, first of all, we've been nominated 5 times before that. So you get to, you walk the red carpet each time. And at the beginning, you're just like, I'm just so happy to be here. And then by year 5, I was like, I really would like to win this.
Right.
I really wanted to win it while my mom was still alive. She
Yeah.
was sick at the time.
Who wouldn't want to win an Oscar if you're in a film business?
Right.
I mean, truly, with that,
My idols had
That's
won that.
tantamount to
it's
that.
it's the equivalent of the Oscar.
Right.
If you're in the restaurant business, a serious restaurateur, the James Baird Award,
Yes.
Restaurateur of the Year, is the best.
This is
My
amazing.
idols,
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my idols had won it, Danielle Ballou and Wolfgang and Danny Meyer and Keith McNally, and so I was like, wow, that would be, for a kid from the sticks, I was like, that could be pretty exciting. It was,
To be honest
it
with
was
you,
a really fun night.
I'll be honest with you, it was long overdue.
Yeah.
And by year number 3, I was that close to going there and start kicking some doors and letting them know who's in charge of this joke here, because this man right here.
And the Red Bar should win America's Classics at the Beard Awards.
Definitely. Make that happen,
starts.
Kevin.
The great Jabbo Starks that played drums here for so many years, who was with James Brown and all these wonderful musicians. Rolling Stones put out the ranking of the top 100 drummers, and this was 10 years ago. And they put Jabbo and Clyde Stubblefield, is a co-drummer. They were 2 times in James, as the 6 best drummers in
Wow.
in the
that.
history of a. Yeah. And when Jabbo got it, he said, "Number 6. Is this a joke?" I'm like, Jabbo, let's go to New York. We'll kick that door open and says, "We're not accepting this. Top 3 or nothing." And he was joking. Of course, he was so humbled by it, but he found the humor in it, and that is so great.
That's great.
Number 6.
I
I'm
love
not taking number 6.
Okay, so speaking of celebrities, the two of you, between you, have met like a lot of different people. A lot of celebrities have walked through these doors, and many celebrities have walked through your 47 doors that you've had.
No, Kevin had Mick Jagger eat in his office in Chicago.
Oh, I read that in the book. So what I want to ask about that is, did you have a private space because Mick Jagger didn't want to eat in the general pop?
Okay, here's what happened.
Okay, tell me.
Peninsula calls and says Rolling Stones want to eat a Momotaro. We're like, great. They're sending someone ahead. Guy shows up, looks like Daniel Craig from James Bond.
Okay.
And he's kind of ordering me around. He goes, show me where they were going to eat. And I'm like, well, they could eat here in the main dining room. They could eat here as part of this little dining room, or they could eat in our office. We had a really pretty office up top. And he's like, okay, go back. Let's go downstairs. So we go downstairs. We had a little side entrance. And he goes, you stand by the elevator.
You?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Ron Wood and Mick Jagger walk in the door. And I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, hit the button. So we hit the button, we go upstairs. They show him the dining room, and Mick's like, yep, I want to eat here. And he saw I have a record player there, and he's like, hey, don't play any pop music. What do you got? And I showed him Miles Davis Bitches Brew, and he's like, yep, play that. And so I was like, what can I get you to drink, Mr. Jagger? And he's like, I'll take a glass of white wine. And so I go over to Ron Wood, and I go, Ron, Mr. Wood, can I get you something to drink? And he goes, is there any way I could get a Red Bull? We don't serve Red Bull, but I'm like, yes, sir. So it's 90 degrees outside. I'm in a black suit. I run 2 blocks to this nightclub, grab a 6-pack of Red Bull, come back sweating. I'm pouring the Red Bull, and he looks down. He goes, I'm sorry, I'm in a sugar-free Red Bull. So I was like, run back out. Now at this point, I'm drenched in sweat. And as I'm pouring the sugar-free Red Bull, he looks up, he goes, are you nervous, son? I was like, no, just a little warm outside.
Oh my God.
Yeah, sometimes the never letting him see you sweat doesn't work.
Yes,
You're sweating
because
out.
they saw it, but you didn't give in to anything.
No, I didn't give
So
in.
that's good.
But they were lovely.
And they love the food, I'm sure.
They love the food, and they were great. I mean, sometimes it is okay to meet your heroes.
Yes.
I've had people that aren't so great.
Right? I don't know if you want to tell about them or not. It's up to
I'll
you.
tell one story.
Okay.
The
go.
James Corden.
Because he was sick, because he was such a jerk.
Okay.
Roger Waters from
Okay.
Pink Floyd, famously not nice,
Okay.
walked into the restaurant one night, and we were setting up their table, and Rob Katz, my partner, was obsessed with Pink Floyd. And he was like, Mr. Waters, how'd your show in San Diego go last night? And he put his hands on the table, and he goes, would you just give me my fucking table? He said, okay.
And that was that.
So that was that. Ended the conversation.
Wow.
Ended the conversation with Roger. But you know what? Most people have been incredible. So great.
So you both have a famous actor that has frequented both of your places, and talk about that, John Malkovich.
John Malkovich, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, his sister has lived there for the last 15 years. And this is 2 years ago. He was in a bar.
That man his money.
The best fake Russian accent ever.
Yeah, exactly.
From Rounders out there.
From Rounders, yes.
Okay.
And he was here, and one of the bartenders says, "Ollie, that's John Malkovich." And I'm looking at, that is John Malkovich, and I'm a super fan.
Yeah.
So of course I can't introduce myself, and he says, "Man, I love your restaurant. Been coming here for 10 years."
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, how did I
didn't
miss
know that.
you? You know, so couldn't be a nicer guy. His sisters lived there, like I said, for the last 15 years, comes here regularly.
Yeah.
And you could have a unassuming guy, just a kind and thoughtful. And you just sit in that booth over there. That's the only picture actually I've put of myself and a star. We took a little selfie in that second booth where you're sitting over there.
Oh, wow.
And that's my
He's one of the founders of Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago, which is directly across the street from Boca, my first restaurant in Chicago. So he's been in a lot. He's done a couple plays over there while I've been there. And he's a hoot and has a wild sense of humor. Mm-hmm. And one night I was walking to one of my other restaurants, and the artistic director, the late Martha Levy, was with him. And she said, "Oh, John, you know Kevin, of course." And he goes, "Of course I do." He put his hands on both my cheeks and he kissed me on the lips.
And I think in the book, you said he was a good kisser.
Pretty decent kiss.
Okay. That's
He just likes to shock people
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. Shock value.
Yeah.
Always good. Wow. Well, we're going to get into the book, and Ollie, you're in this book a lot, and we're so excited about. And I know you're going to love it, and I know you know the story, or most of the story, I'm sure, of Kevin's walk and all that. But we're going to start talking about that. But I will thank you from the bottom of my heart for quickly letting us take over your restaurant and be able to have the coolest podcast we've had yet.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for having me. And pleasure.
Love you and your family, and thank you for everything that
You're
you do
welcome.
to make everything so great.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll let you guys finish. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks, Ollie.
Thank you.
Well, Kevin, this is one of my favorite sets, as I've said a couple of times. And you and Ollie are like so fun and vivacious and bringing it, making like really good TV.
Aw.
And we thank Ollie so much and appreciate it, admire your friendship. But that was fun to sit down with two restaurateurs that have known each other for a long time.
It's always fun to sit with him and talk with him.
Yeah, so good. So let's get into a little bit more, if not a lot more, about like where your headspace was at and how much guts and oomph did it have to take to open your first restaurant? And because set up the stage for like how you got here and what you're doing.
People always want to say that about courage and that sort of thing, and I don't look back on it that way. When I dropped out of college, it didn't feel gutsy to me. It felt like something I needed to do. I've done things in my life that are gutsy, but the opening the first restaurant and all that, I had a burning need in me to do something that was my own, that felt like my own. And it was kind of goes part of this kind of reinvention of myself that like, I grew up in a house that I didn't always feel well liked in. And so I wanted to invent this person, and that person was a restaurateur who was perpetually happy and throwing a party every night.
Right. So you kind of have a lot of movie setting in you to me, especially when I was reading the book, how you literally say in the book that you wanted to, when you were watching TV in the 70s with like Dallas and the Dynasty and all of that, like you wanted to create this fine dining experience where everyone was happy and all that. Okay, so that's great. A lot of people want to do things like that, but you actually did it. Like, how do you go from like, oh, that looks great on TV, and actually like walking it out? Because you were young. Were you 22 or 23 when you opened your first restaurant?
I was 22. Yeah.
So
I was lucky to, at the University of Illinois, be around a lot of people who knew exactly who they wanted to be and were already operating at a really high level. Two of my housemates, one was Dave Eggers, who ended up being a Pulitzer finalist, and he wrote 2 Tom Hanks movies. And another was a guy named Mike Hopkins, who was the last American astronaut in space. And, one night I was at University of Illinois and talking to Dave, and Dave's like, "You don't want to be a lawyer," to me, questioning me. And I was like, "You're right, I don't."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What do you really want to do?" And I was like, it's kind of cheesy. I want to open up my own restaurant. And he goes, "Well, why aren't you doing that?" And I go, "I don't know. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't have any money. And he goes, Kevin, Mike thinks he's going to be an astronaut. And I was like,
And then became
touche. And he
yeah.
did become one.
Yeah.
And so it felt lonely standing in the shadow of these people that knew exactly what they wanted to do and were excelling at school. And it made me kind of want to fast track my own way to success. Much like Ollie, when he met me and he found out how old I was, it kind of pushed him a little bit. I was like, okay, well, what's my space? What's my novel?
Right.
And that was like, I wanted to open up my own restaurant. So I dropped out, jumped in my Jeep. And when I got to the North Florida, I was like, well, I'm going to run out of money. I better stop here. And so
Wow.
whoever was guiding me guided me here.
Right. Right. And so, what did you say? Your first resume was a great piece of fiction.
That was the first piece of fiction I ever wrote.
First one, yeah, which was glowing because it's got you some
Oh
good
my
jobs,
God,
right?
amazing. I wrote all these restaurants that had mysteriously gone out of business, so they couldn't call for a reference check. And I was interviewed by a guy named Mike Bell at the Beach House restaurant in Panama City, Florida. And I was flailing at my interview, and he had just asked me what my favorite grape varietal was. And I didn't know what he meant by that. The owner, Alice Masker, came by and grabbed me by the face, and she goes, I like this one, Mike, hire this one. And kept walking, and he goes, yeah, I guess you got the job.
Yeah, meant to be. That was the meant to be.
And so
yeah.
I was faking it until I made it.
Right. Well, that's what you have to do a lot of the times. And I think, that can lead to imposter syndrome, even when you are making it or have seemingly made it.
Oh, yeah.
And then you still carry that as well.
Imposter syndrome is pretty powerful, though.
Powerful in a good or bad way.
It can be good and bad.
Yeah.
It's good in a way that if you are doing it correctly, you're continuing your education because you don't want to be found out. And so there are people that get to a certain level and then they stop practicing. They stop their education. And so for me, I was just always like, well, I better study up on wine before I get found out.
So when I was reading the book too, and I knew that you had like the chops and the charisma, personality, and could talk, to be front of the house guy. When you were younger and you wanted to be in this business, did you love food?
Yeah, I did. I loved the whole thing. I mean, I think the original aspect was like I wanted to create these atmospheres where all these people were really happy. But as I got into it, I'd always been intrigued by what rich people ate. Because I wasn't rich. So I was like, what is the magic behind these oysters and caviar and all these fine things? And then as I started to eat better food, you acquire a real taste for it.
Yeah.
And so.
And can you cook? Like, do you cook meals at home, and are you a good cook?
You know what? I'm cooking more right now, probably, than I have been my whole life.
But you know good food.
I know good food. I've always cooked a little bit. And even at Indigo Wine Bar down the street, I had to learn to roll sushi because when we got really busy, I would be the third person to jump on and roll late night.
Okay, talk about that. Talk about opening that wine bar, which was super cool.
So yeah, I mean, first of all, we sold Lazy Days Cafe. I didn't have enough money to not work in between selling Lazy Days and opening up the wine bar. So I went and took a job at Harbor Docks in Destin. And then we opened up this wine bar, which is 100 wines by the glass.
That's a lot.
Sushi till 3 o'clock in the morning, and live rock and roll 7 nights a week. It was me kind of combining all the things that I loved.
Wow. I didn't know you had music 7 nights a week.
We did.
Wow.
And so Glenn Fullen and Scott Randolph, Glenn Fullen, God rest his soul, was a beautiful chef who worked at Creolism, was the chef at Lake Place, and died of a heart attack at age 27.
Oh, wow.
Scott Randolph became the corporate executive chef for all of TGI Fridays, for all of American Airlines. Those were my two sushi chefs.
Wow.
And so it
was
worked and took off. It was game on.
Tell the Peter Ware story at the bar.
Yeah. Robert Davis, who you know very well, who created Seaside with his wife, Daryl, and Peter Weir, the great director, walked into Indigo Wine Bar one night. There was nobody left in there. I was literally wiping down the bar to go home. I'd never seen Robert in one of my places before.
I didn't know who Peter Weir was by face. I'd seen his movies before. I had seen The Year of Living Dangerously. I had seen Fearless. I'd seen Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
And so they came to my bar. Peter commented on the fact that Chet Baker was playing, and he thought that was amazing. He's like, "You're playing Chet Baker here? This is incredible."
Yeah.
And so they start telling stories. I don't have any good stories at this point. I'm 24 years old. I have fraternity stories and a couple of restaurant tales.
Yeah.
And Peter's telling a story about being in Indonesia with Sigourney Weaver and Mel Gibson. And I go, "Excuse me, sir, may I ask who you are?" And he's like, "My name's Peter Weir. I'm looking at this area as perhaps a movie set for a movie I might do." And that ended up being The Truman Show.
Pretty amazing.
And as sweet as Peter Weir was, he came back and asked me if I would cater the dailies.
Yeah.
And we ended up catering the dailies with sushi,
That's amazing.
which was really
And
fun.
did you meet Jim Carrey?
I did. The
What'd you
very first time we catered the dailies, I went there and they came in and said, I'd set it all up. And they said, they're running about an hour late. So I sat in the room by myself for an hour. And the first person to walk in the room was Jim. He did not look directly at me. He just like looked, "Oh, got some sushi today." And he picked up a bite, put it in his mouth, and looked me directly in the eyes. He goes, "That's good sushi." And then he went to his regular persona and was like, "Yeah, what do you got here?" And talked. And
Yeah.
he was lovely. Laura Linney was so great.
I heard she was great. Laura was really nice.
So
and
nice.
sweet. Yeah, that was it's such a magical time.
It was.
It's almost like when you recount the story, and even when I read it in the book and I know the story, it's almost like, will a reader actually believe that this actually really happened? Because it really was quite out of the norm.
And at that point, I had just dropped out of school, 6 years before that. And I had gone from coming down in my beat up Jeep to I'm feeding Jim Carrey sushi. And I was like, I think I might be on the right track.
Right, right. So then, how then did you end up closing Indigo, and then you went back home?
'Cause we sold it.
You
So
sold
somebody came in and made an offer on the wine bar. And at that point, it was a 6-figure offer. And
Yeah. And you're 24.
24, 25.
Mm.
At that point, I was 26 because we've been open a couple years. And, I was like, okay, sure. I just figured that was I was flipping restaurants at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Wow.
Lazy Days was stuck together with bubblegum and Scotch tape. And the wine bar, in a lot of cases, you still, if you try to punch something in there, you put your fist through it. I was like, maybe this gives me enough money to open up what I consider to be a real restaurant. And I took that money and I went back home. They made me sign a non-compete. So I signed a non-compete here and I packed my Jeep and I drove home to Springfield, Illinois
And then
and opened a restaurant there.
open a restaurant. And is that the restaurant that your
It's
mom
called
ended up?
Indigo.
Did your mom?
I told my
end
mom to quit her job. My mom had worked in retail all her life. I go, "Mom, quit your job. We're going to open up a restaurant together."
And that's fun
Oh,
because
it
you were
was-
close.
It was awesome.
And how long did that gig last?
I had it. It's still open.
Okay.
It's been open 28
That's
years.
amazing.
We owned it for 2 years and then I sold it.
Okay.
But her and I had a blast together.
Yeah.
My mom was the hardest worker I'd ever seen in my entire life. When I was a kid, my mom made me start working at age 12. At age 15, before that, I sold tomatoes. I grew tomatoes and sold them in my driveway. I had 2 paper routes. But at 15, she goes, "You're getting a real job where somebody takes taxes out." At the beginning of the summer, 3 weeks had gone by. I hadn't gotten a job yet. And I asked her for $5 to go to Dairy Queen. And she goes, "No." She goes, "Kevin, just like God, I only help those who help themselves." And I got a full-time job in working at Hardee's. And that was the last time I never didn't have a job. I've had
Wow.
a job continuously ever since.
Wow. Wow. Pretty amazing. The beginning, because I know of the 2 restaurants and I
Yes.
saw it with my own eyes. And I actually didn't even know you at that young then at the time. I'm like, that's crazy. Absolute
When
crazy.
I was a kid.
And so commendable and impressive and all those good words. So I can't remember in the book where you went from there. What restaurant?
I went from Springfield to Nashville.
To Nashville. Okay.
And if you look at it, if you want to talk about it in terms of movies, it was like my first 2 movies were like the Blair Witch Project. It was like one camera, a handheld camera, you know, in a small budget. And Springfield was like an A24 movie, still an independent film. Nashville was a full-fledged, full budget Jerry Bruckheimer massive restaurant where I spent real money. I had turned, you know, $500 that I left college with into a decent amount of money and went to Nashville and put it all on black.
Right.
And the beginning of it was amazing. We were on the cover of the Nashville Scene. It said the new Nashville, how 6 degrees is shaping the city. And, you know, opening night, Trisha Yearwood sang. And
amazing.
We, you know, George Strait was in the audience opening night, and Pam Tillis and Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and you know, Jeffrey Steele and Kim Carnes all sang. It was amazing. But it overran me a little bit, and it crashed and burned, and that was my first real taste of failure, you know.
Is that because it was like a club rather than a restaurant, or what?
Part of it.
Yeah, part
you
of
find out that the restaurant will never kill the bar, but the bar will kill the restaurant. And what ended up happening is that around 9 or 10 o'clock every night, 600 people would walk in. And I didn't know anything about keeping a line or having door guys or security. And up until that point, faking it until you make it is okay. There were too many things that I encountered in that 10,000 square foot space that I didn't know how to do.
That's big. Yeah.
And it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Not at the time, no.
Not at the time.
Not at the time, but yes.
Oh, it killed me at the time. But if you're a good detective in life when things go poorly, which most people are not, and you can go back and you can take the bullet and decide that it was your fault, you can come out of it a much smarter, a much better person. And by the time I opened up Boca, which was my first restaurant in Chicago with my partner, Rob Katz, there was no way I was letting that restaurant fail.
Yeah. In the book, you talk about prior to meeting Rob that there were some like dark times, or you didn't exactly know where the next step was, and you did a lot of different jobs. And I could feel your pain in just reading those words about where you were. And then from you to go from there and really, like, let's call it seriously paying your dues. And then you met your partner, Rob Katz. And if you want to tell everybody what Boca means.
Yeah, Boca's the first letters of my last name and his last name shoved together. So Boehm and Katz pushed together.
Which is super cool. But one of the other takeaways that I had from the book, reading it, was that yet again, you and your partner that you just met got along, obviously, became good friends and became business partners, and you've been at it for a long time. So again, this like thread is running through what I'm looking in on your life with like being able to keep and sustain long-standing relationships, which a lot of people don't have. And you had a trouble, or not exactly the childhood that you wanted. I'll leave it at that. But then what you were able to make with your life since then, like you had said earlier, you know, you were making family, but it's really quite a testament to like loyalty and sticking at something, and then having that other person that you're in the relationship being that person that's going to do the same back to you too.
I think it's important to mention, like, you know, that, you know, I've been diagnosed bipolar for only like 5 years, but I was there my whole life. My mom was bipolar, her mom was bipolar. But when you're a kid, you don't make that leap to thinking that you're depressed. You just think most people probably have these dark issues that they have to overcome. And so I went to a therapist once when I was 26 years old. She told me that she thought I was bipolar, and I told her to fuck off. I was like, you don't know me, Sharon. I'm not bipolar. Because I so desperately wanted to be someone who had it all together, who had this happy life and had all these people around. And those relationships were so important to me because that's what kept me sane, and that's what kept me level, and that was what made me feel loved. And so I'm so grateful for that, because when I did find great people, when I found the Ollies of the world or the Robs of the world, I knew to hold on to those people. And that's of all the things that I have in my life, I have in my notes section of my phone, all the people in this world that I love that love me. And when I need to be, to find my foundation again, which happens every once in a while, when I get off track, I look at that part on my phone. And so I've not always been great at life. I've not always been great at romantic relationships, but I've always been really good at friendship. And I have this wonderful family of 20 people in this world that I love more than anything,
That's amazing.
including my 3 kids.
Yes. Beautiful kids, by the way. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really, really stunning family. So the book debuts and is going to be on the stands on the 4th of November.
November 4th.
So we're
I'm putting
hyping.
I'm putting a lot of information out for
We're hyping
all the
this.
secrets.
Well, no. Well, yes, there are secrets in the book, but we have not talked about them yet. So for the listeners.
Yes. I can tell a line at the beginning of the book that
Okay,
maybe
go
gives a
tell
little.
it. Go tell.
The first line of the book is, in the summer of 1989, halfway through a Western omelet and a cup of coffee, I found out that I wasn't really Kevin Boehm.
Yes. That's a cliffhanger at the beginning
It is
of
a
the book,
cliffhanger.
and we can't give that away, but it's intriguing because obviously it's very intriguing, and
Yeah.
it's I don't know, larger than life and sad and interesting and happy all at the same time. Reading it,
Well, I'm grateful for it because I'm the sum of everyone and everything that I've ever encountered. And sitting here at 54 years old in this restaurant that I spent so much time in,
Yeah.
I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire life.
that's so great.
I really found true joy and happiness. I could say that with a straight face for the first time. And I had to go through all that crap in the book to get
Right.
to it.
Right.
And so I'm really grateful that I've had such an interesting and wild and crazy life, because it brought me to this point.
Right. So we talked before we went live also about how most people don't write their autobiography, like at middle of your life.
While they're
right?
living it?
While you're living it, right?
Yeah.
Which was so, and I will say this was courageous. And if you don't think so, I don't know, I do. Your transparency and authenticity for a person who is young, still in the game and living was amazing.
I had some really dark moments during the pandemic, and what came out of that is I really wanted people to know who I really was for the first time. There was a small group of people in my life that did, but writing the book was the most cathartic thing I've ever done in my entire life. And even if I hadn't found a publisher and been able to sell my book, I would have done that exercise anyway. And I'll challenge everybody listening today to write your own life story. Because if you can strip all the coats of varnish off of it and really write the story, get rid of the choreography. When you tell a story over the years and it becomes more and more choreographed? I just wanted to tell these stories as they actually happened. And I was really concerned about getting it right. So I would send it to my sister and I'd be like, hey, did I get this right? And every once in a while she'd be like, we forgot about this. And so I wanted it to be accurate. And by the time I finished the book, when I wrote that last paragraph, I had one of the most beautiful cries of my whole life.
Wow.
Because I was sad that it was over, and I was also happy that it happened.
Well, in researching this interview and, seeing you on podcasts and your trailer, which is amazing, by the way, for the book release. How did you get Angela Bassett to write the unbelievable review that she wrote?
Angela and I went on a hiking trip together years ago. I did this hiking place. There's a thing called of course. So everybody does. The Ranch at Live Oak is a place you can go to in Malibu that's this really tough fitness trip. And Angela was on that trip. And I walked in the first day and Angela was asking me what we were in for the whole day. And I go, I don't know. She's like, are you one of the instructors? I go, no, I'm just here. Okay. And so we got up on that hill that first day and we just became good buddies.
Wow.
And
She's amazing.
She's amazing.
She's amazing.
And we remained good buddies. And I was like, hey, can I send you the book? And she was like, would you like me to write I loved it. Can I write something for it? And I'm like, absolutely. And so.
It's so real. So real, so odd, raw, and inspiring at the same time. COVID was tough. I'm a business owner like you, and it was tough.
Yeah.
And a super challenging moment in time for so many, all of us on different levels. I read in the book that you had to lay off 1,800 people and then get insurance for people and all that was going on. I mean, I can't even imagine what that was like.
Well, first of all, the day before they shut down restaurants in Chicago, my mother died.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
So I was bedside with my mom. Rob was trying to keep me away from everything that was going on. She passed. We couldn't have a funeral because they'd stopped allowing funerals. That next night, we went to Indigo, the restaurant I'd opened with my mom, because all of her paintings were on the wall.
Beautiful.
We had dinner there. The proprietor of Indigo took one of the blue dog paintings she painted off the wall and gave it to us to leave with,
Yeah.
which was incredible. But then I drove up to Chicago the next day and we had to furlough 1,800 employees. But I mean, we were trying to figure all this out. How do we shut down all these restaurants? We need to take care of all these people. So we're like, okay, Rob and I donated personally 6 figures, put it in an account, told everybody if they have needs quickly to reach out to us. And we were sending money and sending Amazon to people and went to the bank, said, how much money can we borrow? Our rent at that point, company-wide, was something like $10 million a year in rent. And we borrowed basically enough money to satisfy us like 4 months.
Wow.
And so at this point, don't know when we're going to reopen, furloughed everybody, still paid for everybody's insurance, did food drops at 2 of our restaurants twice a week, kept enough people on to kind of keep things moving and figure out what was happening. And then with 16 other restaurateurs, I founded the Independent Restaurant Coalition, and we basically wrote the white paper of what ended up becoming the Restaurant Revitalization Fund and the CARES Act. And so
Amazing.
all these people still try to figure out, okay, where's my purpose now? Let's shift to being lobbyists.
Right. Well, weren't you also, you knew President Obama from coming into the restaurant, and then you basically had to pitch him to.
Well, at the time it was President Trump.
Oh, Trump.
So
Okay.
I knew Senator Durbin because I grew up in Springfield and his daughter had gone to grade school with me.
Wow.
Obama had come into all the restaurants throughout town. He had gone to my restaurants at Springfield. I had met him at Boca. He walked while he was president, he came to Swift and Sons one night and walked up and said, Kevin, the restaurant business is a tough business. You seem to have navigated it well. Congratulations. It's like, thank you so much, Mr. President. I was like, I think that, because he, of course, didn't remember me. I was like, I think he used to go to my restaurant in Springfield, Illinois all the time. He was like, what restaurant was that? And I was like, Indigo Restaurant. I went there all the time. And then I said, I think he used to go with our mutual friend, John Cullerton. He goes, Kevin, John Cullerton's a terrible tipper. We had this great conversation back and forth.
Unbelievable.
And
you really should be in movies, Kevin. I mean, like, I think you've kind of missed your calling.
there you go.
Let's get him a starring role in something.
You want me to do my Trump impression, too?
Yeah, go.
And so then the Independent Restaurant Coalition actually got invited to the White House, and they allowed us to bring 3 people from our organization and that sat in a room with Mnuchin and Jared and Ivanka and Dom and President Trump. And so that was wild. We went from just like getting on the phone, raising $300,000, and then watching C-SPAN one day and watching this pass that got $28.6 billion in grants. And so there was 2 years where we didn't know if we were going to live or we were going to die. We didn't know. We closed a couple of restaurants. It was terrible. The thing that had always kept me standing up straight was having my restaurants to walk into. And so the not knowing of what was going to happen at the time and losing my mom at the time and quite frankly, my marriage falling apart at the same time, all those things happening at the same time took me to like the darkest place in my life. And, it's so beautiful though, because rock bottom is a gift. And, if you ever listen to Dax Shepard's podcast, he has a copy of Alcoholics Anonymous sitting next to his bed. There are 36 entries in the inside cover, and all 36 entries are the time he thought he hit a rock bottom. But actual rock bottom for him was a gift, and I had that same moment. And when I came out of that moment, I wrote down all these really broad goals that I wanted to have happen. And they were massive things. They were, I don't want to drink anymore. I want to be sober. I want to go 6 months and not walk any of my dining rooms to get my head straight. I want to go to therapy 5 times a week. I wrote all these things down on a piece of paper. I did them all. I kind of threw, for the first time in my life, I've been throwing the kitchen sink at ambition my entire life. And then for a year, I threw the kitchen sink at my own happiness. And it was the best thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this, where you are in your life right now, it's opening up a whole new genre for you to do so many different things, public speaking being one of them. So you've got 20 public speaking engagements in November alone.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That is just crazy.
Well, listen.
What about a TED Talk? So you're going to get a TED Talk?
You know what? I was signed up for a TED Talk, and then the pandemic happened. It got canceled, and I've never gone back to doing one again. But yeah, but I'd love to do one. Speaking is really fun. It's funny because most people meet me and think instantly that I'm an extrovert, but I actually get a lot of my energy from being alone. And speaking is not an extroverted activity as far as I'm concerned. Like being up on stage by myself and being able to speak, it feels more introverted to me.
You're an introverted extrovert.
Exactly.
Exactly. This is going to be literally a curveball question, literally.
Okay.
But so am I recalling this correctly that you threw the first curveball out at the...
I threw the first pitch at the Cubs game.
Yeah, okay. When did that happen and how?
That happened, I've had a couple really great, I'm a massive Cubs fan. I've had a couple of really good, I threw out the first pitch in 2014.
Wow.
But more importantly, when the Cubs won the World Series, I was in Cleveland. I went to all the playoff games that year. I flew back home and it's 10 a.m. I've not gone to bed yet. And I'm getting into bed and my phone rings and it's Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer, the GM and the president of the Cubs at the time. And they're like, we're in an empty Wrigley Field in left field. And for those, do you know the goat curse? Billy Goat curse? The Billy Goat curse was, they didn't allow a goat into Wrigley Field. And so Theo says, I want to eat goat in Wrigley Field right now. I was like, okay. So I drove to Girl and the Goat, one of our restaurants, grabbed a 9.5-pound goat leg. And my partner and I and our COO drove into Wrigley through a sea of people and sat in an empty Wrigley Field with those guys and ate goat. And that was like the cover of CNN the next day, was all of us eating goat in Wrigley Field.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, it is going to be really interesting to continue to watch your trajectory into the stratosphere. I highly recommend this book, The Bottomless Cup. One more question. Where'd the name come from?
The name was that I was constantly trying to fill my cup up with things. And so, filling it up with like manic moments. I kind of mistook manic moments for happy moments. Something would happen and I would get all this dopamine. I was like, that's amazing. And I would crash. And so it would never truly fill the cup up. And so.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here. We're going to buy
Such a pleasure.
20 or 30 books, hardback, so that we can give them away to all of our followers on social media.
Oh, thank you.
Well, and we're leaving here, everybody, to go to Kaya to shoot handsome Kevin Boehm at Kaya, who's going to be on the cover of the November issue. So this is a fun day.
I do want to end by saying a couple things. One, first of all, you and I met at my very first restaurant some
Lazy days.
33 years ago. Congratulations on all your success in navigating what a hard world you're in.
Thank you.
And so mutual appreciation society, much appreciation for your talent and for your grit all these years.
Thank you.
And I just want to say how special 30A is to me. I think of it more of my hometown than I do Springfield these days.
Yeah. Well,
I get to come back here and there's a lot of love on this road for me.
There is.
And it means a lot to me.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. So fun. Everybody, have a great day. I'm so glad you're tuning in. Kevin Boehm.